In terms of the fourth quarter, they had all but one of their buckets was inside the paint. Was that them just being able to get into the paint, get whatever they want because of that point of attack defense like you're talking about?
Yeah, they had that. And
the Indiana Fever were on a mission. They steamrolled Paige Buchers and the Dallas Wings. Then they crushed the Minnesota Lynx to capture their first ever Commissioner's Cup title. And just when people thought it couldn't get better, they completely dismantled A.J.A. Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces. 3 dominant wins in a row. The hype was real. The momentum was peaking. So when they faced the lowly Los Angeles Sparks, without Caitlin Clark, everyone expected another routine win. The Sparks have been one of the weakest teams in the WNBA, but what happened next? It left fans furious. The referees made calls so outrageous, so flat-out embarrassing, that Fever head coach Stephanie White could only mutter 5 brutal words that perfectly exposed everything wrong with this league. The game slipped away not because of talent, but because of terrible officiating. Do you think the refs cost Indiana that win? Drop your thoughts in the comments, we need to talk about this. Let's go.
Should have won this game. There was inconsistencies in the officiating. Wait until you see the second half. And I have
The Fever stepped onto the court without their biggest star, and what followed stunned everyone. Caitlin Clark was ruled out with a lingering left groin injury, her 5th straight game on the sidelines. And without her, everything changed. Clark isn't just a scorer, she's the engine of the Fever's offense. Her playmaking, her court vision, her gravity, it all shapes how this team functions. Without that spark, Indiana looked like a shadow of itself, struggling to find rhythm, identity, and momentum.
finding out this morning that we probably need to hold out again today. It's just, it really is a day-to-day thing. And I think for us, making sure that we're prioritizing her long-term health and wellness. It's anybody who's had some of these.
But that wasn't the end of their problems. Damaris Dantas was unavailable, off representing her country in the FIBA AmeriCup. Her absence forced the Fever to reshuffle their rotations, losing a crucial piece off the bench, someone who brings size, experience, and stability. And then came the real shocker, Dana Evans had left the team entirely. 3 major contributors, gone in one brutal stretch. It felt like everything was unraveling, and yet, despite being so depleted, the Indiana Fever were still expected to win comfortably. ESPN's matchup predictor gave them a 72.9% chance of victory. Odds makers at MGM had them favored by 6.5 points. The logic seemed obvious, the Sparks have been one of the league's worst teams all season. Meanwhile, the Fever were coming off a red-hot 3-game win streak. Aaliyah Boston was dominating the paint. Kelsey Mitchell was stepping up as a vocal leader. Team chemistry looked rock solid. On paper, this should have been an easy night.
Howard looking backdoor for Mitchell, not there. Shot clock down to 7. McDonald feed inside, and it's Howard for 2. It's good.
But something wasn't right beneath the surface. Without Caitlin Clark, the Fever's tempo slowed to a crawl. The ball movement lacked urgency. The rhythm that once flowed so naturally now felt disjointed. Aaliyah Boston, usually a dominant force in the paint, wasn't getting the touches she needed to take over. The offensive system, so fluid with Clark at the helm, was starting to crack. And yet, on paper, the Fever still had the firepower. Multiple all-star level talents. Experience. Momentum. Meanwhile, the Sparks were simply trying to survive night to night. So how did it all go so wrong? How could Indiana possibly lose this game?
I don't get it. Breanna Stewart, A'ja Wilson. Wait until you see what they did for Kelsey Plum tonight. They get all the calls. Touch fouls, anything. And guess what happens? Aaliyah Boston, the best center in the game. And guess what happens to her? She gets called for every touch foul and ends up in foul trouble this entire season and is still putting up MVP type numbers. What happens with Caitlin Clark? Have you ever seen her get a touch foul? Phantom call? No. The physicality, that's the WNBA when it comes to Caitlin Clark. But anybody else, the physicality disappears. And it's foul after.
The expectations were sky high. Everyone believed sheer talent would carry the Fever past the chaos. After all, they'd just proved they could win big games. Championship-caliber players were still on the floor. On paper, the Sparks looked like easy prey for a team with Indiana's remaining firepower. But that's the trap, on paper. In reality, the perfect storm was already forming. 3 key absences. Shuffled rotations. No Caitlin Clark to orchestrate the chaos. That leadership void hit harder than anyone expected. The chemistry that had fueled their winning streak was built around Clark's presence, her direction, her tempo, her gravity. Without it, cracks began to form. Role players who once thrived in clear, defined roles were now forced into uncomfortable territory. They had to create, lead, and adapt on the fly. And as the opening tip-off came, the weight of it all, the pressure, the changes, the missing pieces, dragged them down from the very start.
What does it take to get a team to be more consistent, especially from you on the coaching side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. There's always got to be a high attention to knowing personnel. Oftentimes you don't get a lot of practice time, and so going over a lot of their sets, which you do. But at the end of the day, making sure we know our personnel, who we're going to run off the 3-point line, what we're willing to give up. We've got to make sure that there's a high attention to.
Even as the Fever faltered, 3 players stood tall, refusing to let this game slip away without a battle. Leading that charge was Aaliyah Boston, who put on a clinic in the paint. She was unstoppable, battling through double teams, finishing through contact, and anchoring both ends of the floor. Boston poured in 23 points and grabbed 12 rebounds, a stat line that screamed victory. She shot an efficient 9 of 17 from the field and nailed 5 of 7 from the line. When the Fever finally started feeding her the ball in clutch moments, Boston reminded the league exactly why she's one of the most gifted bigs in the game.
Here's Mitchell off the screen, but can't connect on the 3. Boston offensive rebound, rolls it in and a foul. The 2 bigs bring the ball up the floor, and Hamby wasn't ready for that.
How about that change of pace? That burst like a guard gets downhill.
Kelsey Mitchell rose to the moment in Caitlin Clark's absence. With the offense sputtering, she became the spark the Fever desperately needed. Mitchell poured in 19 points, including 3 clutch triples that kept Indiana alive when things got tight. But her impact wasn't just on the scoreboard. This game marked her 251st appearance in a Fever jersey, second only to the legendary Tamika Catchings in franchise history. It was a milestone night, and Mitchell wore it like a badge of honor. Her poise, her leadership, and her will to win kept Indiana in the fight against a team they were expected to dominate.
Lob inside, Boston too far underneath, shot clock down to 5, kick out Mitchell, oh yes!
But the fight didn't stop there. Natasha Howard stepped in with her trademark veteran poise and delivered a performance worthy of headlines. She dropped 21 points and pulled down 9 rebounds, just one shy of a double-double. Howard was locked in, shooting a blistering 8 of 11 from the field, including a smooth 3-pointer and clutch free throws down the stretch. She went 4 for 6 from the line and gave the Fever a critical scoring boost when the offense started to stall. On both ends of the floor, Howard brought energy, efficiency, and leadership, refusing to let the moment overwhelm her.
Busted them all up. We went to the same high school.
Howard left alone, answers with a 3.
These 3 warriors carried the entire team on their backs. They put up championship-level numbers against an opponent that was supposed to crumble under pressure. Boston owned the paint like the all-star she is. Mitchell drilled clutch buckets to keep the Fever within reach. Howard made veteran plays you just don't see from younger players. Picture the scene, Boston dominating inside, Mitchell knocking down shots from every angle, Howard keeping the flame alive with her poise and timing. The comeback was real. You could feel it building. The crowd felt it. The energy shifted. Indiana was coming, but then, it started unraveling, and not because of talent. Not because of execution. but because of the officiating, call after call tilted the floor against Indiana. Sophie Cunningham was grabbed by the neck, no whistle. Nothing. Instead of a foul, the refs handed out a jump ball. It was that kind of night. Their brilliance was being buried under chaos. And just when the Fever started to believe, the refs made sure the odds stayed stacked against them.
It's so dangerous. They don't look like a 5-win team to me.
Oh, and there's Tipson sending it back.
The controversial calls kept coming, one after another, right when the game was hanging in the balance. You could see it on their faces. The frustration. The disbelief. The helplessness. These players were pouring their hearts out on the court. Boston was dominating with elite-level poise. Mitchell was knocking down shots that should have sealed the win. Howard was showing her championship pedigree with clutch, high IQ plays. They died for everything right. But every time momentum started to swing Indiana's way, the whistle blew, and not in their favor. It was like the refs were rewriting the script in real time, stripping the Fever of the win they were fighting for.